My first question to you will be, what were your expectations before going to COP? What was Rwanda's position into going to COP? And where this expectation met? Was the outcome of the COP27 satisfactory for Rwanda? And I will start with our chief negotiator in COP, Faustine.
Thank you very much, Excellency Ambassador. Before going to COP27, I remember we had a meeting again like this one, where we tried to elaborate more on the expectation of the government of Rwanda in COP27, not only in the negotiations itself, but also in the networking, which is an opportunity for us. So let me start with negotiations. Our main expectation were on climate finance, especially as a developing country, which is entitled to get some enabling pillars to advance our agenda. So we were expecting at least to see developed countries raising their ambition in terms of delivering on 100 billion. We're expecting to advance the discussion on a new quantified goal on climate finance, which will be effective by 2025. But we wanted to see the advancement of the discussion on that item. Indeed, we had so many expectations in loss and damage in two ways. One was on forging the institutional structure of Santiago network on loss and damage. Second, we had the hope of having a financing arrangement on loss and damage. Those were the two main key expectations in terms of loss and damage. Indeed, we had expectation in adaptation. The first expectation was to have a clear roadmap on doubling climate finance for adaptation. Second, we had a hope of advancing discussion on forging together the global goal on adaptation, because we want to see adaptation getting same treatment as mitigation in the convention and as well as in the Paris Agreement implementation. Last but not least, we had expectation to advance the discussion on Article 6, specifically on carbon market, which is one of the innovative way of raising additional climate finance, especially in developing countries like Rwanda. And indeed, the transparency work, we can't not talk about it because we have obligation to report. So, what are we satisfied? Are we not satisfied? It's both. We are satisfied, especially on loss and damage. As you all know, having an arrangement of funding loss and damage, establishing a fund or establishing an arrangement for funding loss and damage was not even on the agenda. So we had the first fight of including it on the agenda. Then, after including it on the agenda, it was a success. When COP was supposed to end on 18th. On 18th exactly, the discussion was very hot and we had 3 options. And it was after the time provided for the COP when we established we agreed to establish the fund, but with the generous flexibility of EU. I have to mention this because discussions were very tough and all the countries were firm on their position until we get the flexibility of EU of accepting to establish the fund at COP27. Otherwise, we could have decided to establish it next year. So that is one of the key achievements. Then we are also disappointed on the delivering on 100 billion. The report was portraying 82 billion. In the high-level climate finance dialogue, however, the Oxfam representative challenged the report, saying that only 27 billion are delivered with the reference to the climate finance definition. So seeing that gap, it means a lot. We are reporting 82 billion, which is not even yet achieving the target of 100 billion, and yet non-government actors are saying that no, according to climate definition, we only accept 27 billion. That's a disappointment. Then second disappointment was on raising ambition in terms of mitigation, especially for developed countries. So we were expecting to see saving 1.5 degrees Celsius, which was the motto of COP26. At COP26, we had several key milestones to build on at COP27. However, we were disappointed to see that there is no ambitious commitment which are helping us to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius. Indeed, on the on the Article 6, we were somehow disappointed on treatment, the transition of CDM. Developing countries have invested a lot in the Clean Development Mechanism projects, so which is the carbon market regime during the Kyoto Protocol. But shifting, leapfrogging from Kyoto Protocol regime to Paris Agreement, we don't want to see CDM projects dying just a natural death. We want to have a transition period which will allow us to transit from Kyoto to Paris Agreement. So that also was one of the contentious issues. Let me pause there. Colleagues also will add more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DDG. That really shows the mixed baggage as it was being, as the ambassador of Germany pointed before. I would like to pass the floor to Honorine, just to get also your views on what were your expectations as youth leader coming into the negotiations ahead of the COP and on the outcome of the COP.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Allow me first to use this opportunity to thank the government of Rwanda for their support toward the youth negotiator, but not only the support, but the trust and opportunity to be part of Rwandan climate negotiator. We appreciate your support, DDG, and the whole government. And I would also use this opportunity to thank European Union to Rwanda for their sponsorship and the Embassy of Germany for their sponsorship for us to be able to attend the COP27. Talking about if our outcome was met at COP27, as also part of Rwanda delegation, as young people, our priority was aligning into the position of the country, including the priority on loss and damage finance that was achieved in COP27, but also talking about action to climate empowerment. There was no good outcome at the COP27, and where young people need to be empowered to better and meaningful participate in this intergovernmental discussion. So that's what I can add on what the chief of negotiators said. On outcome, we are somehow happy, but also somehow disappointed on what he mentioned. Thank you.
So on this same analysis on expectations and outcome, I would like to invite Faustin from the Rwanda Climate Change and Development Network to give us his take.
Thank you very much, Excellency Moderator. I was asking myself how I am going to handle this, whether I will be diplomatic enough before ambassadors and the other diplomatic missions here. As civil society, it may be a little bit complicated. But let me first of all also thank the government of Rwanda first for organizing such a wonderful team and for co-opting us as the civil society to be parties. It gives us room to enter the negotiating rooms, to listen to what the negotiations are, to influence, to put pressure a little bit from behind. And that is what the role of the civil society is actually meant to be. Rwanda does not negotiate as a country. It negotiates through blocks. On the African continent, as the African group of negotiators, but equally in the G77 plus China, where we also find space for the negotiations. And according to the IPCC report, which shows that Africa is actually the most hit when it comes to climate change effects, one of the expectations was that Africa would be treated differently. And sometimes, that's why I said that I don't know whether I will be diplomatic enough. Sometimes when we talk about issues of the polluter pays, then the polluters try to shy away. When we talk about common but differentiated responsibility, the ones who have the bigger responsibility try to shy away. And I think this is why 27 years, forgetting the dead year of Corona, COVID, we are still talking of getting to tangible results in terms of real ambitions in terms of reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, which are the cause of this global warming. But who is at play? Who are we negotiating with? Sometimes I not even tend to look at the governments, global north, but I look at the corporates with corporate interests that they want to advance, and therefore delaying the negotiations. One thing that was very disappointing for me in the rooms is that you will find that people, instead of concentrating on material, the content of why actually the COP is in place, people are discussing on a word, just a word. Lawyers are discussing on a word. Which word should we use? Which one should be better? And you spend 2 hours, and sometimes they say, we cannot agree on this, let's consult again. A word. You are negotiating on a word when people are talking about floods, when people are talking about droughts, when people are talking of the heat waves that hit Europe. And just a word is taking most of your time. And I see, to me, as civil society, I see it as wasted of time. People should be discussing content, but a word brings a problem, and lawyers know what negotiations mean. Now, with Africa, we needed to see if we could have a continent considered with special needs and special circumstances. That one never even appeared on the agenda. But Africa hoped that it would possibly appear on the agenda. On the tentative agenda, it was there, but on the final agenda, it never appeared. To us, it was a disappointment. When you are talking about a continent whose carbon budget does not even reach 4%, and yet highly affected by the impact, but equally a continent which sequences more than T emits, but is never put into consideration, it becomes a real problem. Now, the loss and damage which comes out as an answer on the 11th hour, thanks to European Union. And I think Europeans have been much more in Africa than any other. So I think I have to congratulate you for that. You know us better than any other person. You know us better than any other part of the continent. I mean of the planet. And knowing us better can even make you support us. And actually, I also thank the government of Rwanda for the bilateral negotiations that took place at the COP. Sometimes you find that the bilateral negotiations are even better than the global negotiations of the cause as to why the COP has been called. And it's a disappointment to some level in terms of trying to address the real issues. You alluded to that, Your Excellency, that we are treating the symptoms and not touching on the core issues. The 1.5 is likely not to be met, looking at the ambitions that have been given by different nations in the NDCs. It does not come anywhere to addressing the issues, to keeping the 1.5 a reality. And that one is a very big threat for us. And we say that and we've started seeing now something is coming up. I suppose some of you know this. Instead of phasing down or even phasing out the use of fossil fuels, what we are trying to see now is that countries are coming back to the use of fossil fuels. Possibly the Ukrainian war is one of the things that is a pointer. We see even some European countries coming back to that. So now, the sliding back into use of fossil fuels for energy again is a very big slide, because it means that we are nowhere near getting to even what we promised in our NDCs. So, to cut it short, I think we have a long way to go in terms of ensuring that the COP negotiations address the real issues of climate change that are affecting people globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. It is indeed important, and it's an opportunity for speak frankly and in this fora so that we can all share the thoughts and the ideas. So thank you very much for these elements and contributions. So Rwanda, as you said, played a key role, and it played a key role as a negotiator within the continent, with the G77, with the European Union, at the multilateral level. It was a key role. And Rwanda also brought some bilateral initiatives that they were important at the COP27. So what were the major bilateral initiatives that Rwanda brought, Rwanda's one team brought to the COP27? And I will start by Faustine.
The key achievement of government of Rwanda through bilateral and multilateral discussion, the first and foremost is the launch of Rwanda Green Investment Facility, Ireme Invest, which is an investment facility which is targeting to boost our private sector to start or to come on board and support climate proofing our development. It has two wings. There is a wing of project preparation facility, PPF, which will be a grant, which will be managed by our green fund, National Green Fund for NERWA, and it has also a wing of loan facility which will be managed by BRD. So that's a key milestone and a key achievement. We keep saying that political will is the cornerstone of everything. Seeing our president coming at COP27, coming to Rwandan Pavilion, launching a facility, and capitalizing 104 million US dollars just in an event of 2 hours, it was very impressive. For some of us, like Thierry in the Ministry of Finance, he said, I'm done with my COP for the first day. So there was a lot of excitement. That's one. Second, having launched the NDC facility and signing the agreement with German on science and research, it was also another key milestone. We are talking about 100 billion to achieve our NDC, but there is no way we'll achieve the 100 billion if we don't have initiatives like NDC facility. So capitalizing 46 million euro within that facility, indeed the facility which is going to support government actors and government agencies, it means a lot. But we don't want to see GCF board meeting just as a board meeting coming here in Rwanda. We want Rwandans, we want government actors, non-government actors to take advantage, to fully take advantage of the meeting coming here. Indeed, this year at COP27, we took the chairmanship of NDC partnership. So normally, the NDC partnership is co-chaired by 2 ministers, one minister from developed country and another minister from developing country. So Rwanda now, the chairmanship is UK and Rwanda. So it's a chairmanship of 2 years, and in this partnership is one of the vehicle which helped even us to develop and update our NDC, and it is also again pulling together all key partners together to support our NDC. So we had signed another MOU with the UK to support our Center of Excellence on Sustainable Cooling, which is in Rubirizi. So this was also a key milestone. As you all know, more than 30% of our agriculture production is lost due to inadequate facilities of cooling. So this center is coming to bridge the gap between researchers, farmers, and business people. So signing an MOU or supporting that center, it's also one of the key milestones. Maybe let me pause there, others will add more, but on the bilateral, we are very satisfied, and we are looking forward for the implementation, because signing is one thing, implementation is another thing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. Indeed, those of us who were here and looking at Rwanda from afar, were very impressed on how on the very first day you managed to put together and bring all the investment on the IREME fund. And I'm sure Thierry would like to follow up on that. From the Ministry of Economic and Finance, you were very much involved in this.
Maybe let me just rebound on the first question, because I'm not sure everybody in the audience is familiar with going to COP and how it works. So maybe I'll give you some context for COP26, which was in Glasgow. So we went last year. right? Faustin was here already, I was here. It was a much smaller delegation, but at the time we already had some very good results. So what was COP for us? It was an opportunity to showcase Rwanda excellency, but as well to negotiate bloc to bloc. So you have those two elements when you go to COP. And that's why Honorine and the two Faustins said that they were happy and at the same time a bit sad about the results of COP. Because you have the negotiations bloc to bloc, bloc south with bloc north, and the negotiation country to country, the bilaterals, which is your question. What we see is that structurally, it's way more difficult to have results when you negotiate bloc to bloc. Why? Because all the countries are not on the same level, being on the global north or on the global south. So reaching global results is even more difficult. And even when we get pledges like 100 billion or doubling the adaptation finance, we're not even able to deliver. And we see it for adaptation. We don't even have a framework. We just agreed in COP27. So that was the difficult part because I think that the approach might be not the best one. It's a bit rigid and it's very difficult to negotiate. On top of that, you have the human qualities, which means that listening can be complicated. The regularity with which we meet to do green diplomacy, so to negotiate on green projects and green programs, is not frequent enough when you think about it. We're meeting once a year. It's people who barely know each other, and we want to engage and to pledge bloc to bloc. So just the structural approach is complicated to have results. Another topic is coming as Rwandan Team Rwanda. When we arrive as Team Rwanda, we have prepared. So COP27 is actually COP26 plus one for us. We already know what kind of pavilion we want, we know what kind of people we want to see, we know which facility we want to launch. We have a very precise idea of what we want to do. What you see in the medias, on Twitter, etc., is actually the fruit of more than a year of work. And that's how we're so prepared and we're having so many good results. So that's a bit how I see it about the expectations and give you some context about the being happy and sad at the same time. About the results and what we signed, I think most of the people are aware, and Faustin said it very well. The launch of Ireme Invest was incredible. Maybe I'll just give you a personal comment about the launch of Ireme Invest. In COP, how does it work? You have several zones. You have the green zone for the public, the audience. You have the blue zone, so it was for us as a negotiator and party, what they call party. And you have the red zone for the presidents and the CEOs of the main institutions. And most of the time, it's very rare to see head of states leaving the red zone to go in another zone. So the fact that His Excellency President Paul Kagame came already, factually, was incredible. So he came, and then you had this whole movement with a lot of African people that came in our pavilion, Rwanda pavilion, to see the launch of Ireme. So we had like 50 or 60 people just queuing to try to go there to see the president and the launch of the facility. And right after the event, which was a funny fact, the security was only 3 or 4 people, and you had the whole delegates in the whole Africa who wanted to see the president and take a selfie with him. And at the beginning, security was stressed out, and then they let the president said, let them. And you had this bath of people coming, and the whole Africa being there and being represented, and it was I had cheap thrills, you know. And those kind of events show you how important it is as well culturally for Africa to preserve our own environment. And that's why I was thinking about human values, because when you think just about the way the economies were developed in the last century, it was a carbonized way, and saying, okay, we're looking for GDP growth, not happiness and the environment, it will come afterwards. And in different culture, like Asia or South America or Africa, we have really this sense of being together and preserving in our environment. And the fact that the president came in our zone and everybody was here was an incredible event.
Yeah, thank you very much for the personal account. It becomes very real and concrete and reflects very well the leadership that Rwanda showed and that your leadership showed in the launch of the Ireme Invest Fund. So thank you for that. So we continue to see an increase and active participation of Rwanda youth at the COP and in other multilateral climate conference. So what has been your main focus on engagement on COP27? And here we come on the role of the youth, the role you played at the conference. And I'll give Honorine the floor.
Thank you so much. Youth engagement at COP27 was in different parts, like youth climate negotiator. First, we are very active because we work closely with the government that hold an active space for us, which make us very proactive. And going to COP as youth, some were mainly from private sector, other were from civil society, and our engagement has been going in negotiation, like some of us as part of Rwanda climate negotiation, but also we had other youth as a speaker and participant in different side events that were there at the COP as well, but also being part of one team Rwanda as well. We have been working closely with other stakeholders from Rwanda in Rwandan Pavilion, which was full of rich session and not only a pavilion, but it was also a place of inspiration, like Chief of Negotiator Nseri has said, seeing our excellent president coming and getting an opportunity to take picture with him after the launch of Ileme Investment Fund was a time for us also to explain to other COP delegates what is Ileme Investment Fund, what will be opportunity for youth into that, and many young people from different countries were like, how can we have a great government like the one of Rwanda? So Rwandan youth engagement at COP was mainly in that, and specifically for the negotiation were many, and we had opportunity to be following different thematic like loss and damage, Article 6 on carbon market, agriculture, adaptation, climate finance, and action for climate empowerment. So in the negotiation, we are there to push for the position of our country, which mostly align with the Africa position and the bloc of G77 plus China.
Yep, thank you. So perhaps just a follow-up question on this, Honorine, is, so what did you bring concretely on the table of negotiations? And do you think, as young people, you can influence the negotiations in moving forward?
Starting by if youth can influence the negotiation, the answer is yes, because young people, we have strong voice, and like Your Excellency, you have said, this kind of discussion is all about our future, and we have to be there to design this policy which will affect us in the long run. So we had the power to influence, and the one thing we have to know is that every voice in the room of negotiation matters. I can give you an example. I was there following mainly the negotiation of agriculture, and we had intense and prolonged negotiation because of one country who were setting us back, who didn't want to see mitigation in one paragraph. So like Faustin said, we spent the whole week negotiating to come to an agreement on that one word, to see if we are going to remove mitigation in that paragraph or if we are going to have an agreement. So there has been a lot of negotiation and the other meeting between different country and the party to come up on the last agreement. So all the voice on the table of negotiation matter, And yeah, of course, our voice as young people as well matters. But of course, there is a lot to do because we still have a limited representation of young people in this room of negotiation. And Yungo, which is a youth constituent under UNFCCC, is trying to better strengthen its leadership to see if we can have more young people who can meaningfully and effectively influence this negotiation. And like the chief negotiator said, our uniqueness is having one team. And what I can add on is that also our uniqueness as a Rwanda negotiator is to have the very committed negotiator, including many, many young people being in the negotiation.
Thank you very much, Honorine. This is also this is an important part of our conversation this morning. So how to bring the youth on board and how to look into the future with you on board. So I would like to give the floor also to Faustine, the chief negotiator, and how you saw the role of the young negotiators in your team and how you see it moving forward.
Thank you very much, Excellency. The role of youth in the whole process was marvelous. That's the word I can use. Seeing our young negotiators, first of all, networking with other blocs we are belonging to, supporting lead negotiators from different countries, seeing some of the lead negotiators coming to me, telling me, your young people are helping us a lot. That was for me and for the whole delegation. We are very proud of our young negotiators. That's one. Second, seeing them organizing a side event, a successful side event in Rwandan Pavilion. They brought together other youth from different corners of the world in the Rwandan Pavilion, showcasing what they are doing here in Rwanda, comparing and trying to digest what is being negotiated from negotiating table to the ground, linking with the implementation. For me, that was a good start. That was a key foundation for our youth to emulate and even lead the world in the negotiations and in different forums. So saying so is not just pleasing them because they are here. I usually met them frequently. When they started, we even had a tough time together, telling them, don't do this. When I see someone behaving not the way they should not behave, I just call him or her, remember you are wearing a country badge. You are not supposed to behave like any others. So that friendly working together with them helped, I'm sure it helped them to shape their character and also shape their personality of representing the country. So for us, it's a success. Their involvement was very good, but it's also it gives us a task, not only them but also all of us, to keep the candle burning. Otherwise, we set the bar high, and we don't want to come back to reduce our pace. So we need from there to emulate. Thank you.
So Faustine, from the civil society perspective, how did you cooperate with the youth in bringing this forward?
One thing I can say is that the young volunteers for environment are already members of the Rwanda Climate Change and Development Network. and being members of the Rwanda Climate Change and Development Network connects them to the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. And we have been in these negotiations over years, and I think we are growing up. So we need people who are going to take it forward. And that's why we are training the youth. That's why we need them on board. In the summer shake, we had around 100 youth across the continent, under packages thanks to the funding of SIDA, the Swedish. Those 100, I remember on the 4th, we staged the demonstration in the town of Samashek, a good one, and we were delivering what we called the climate justice torch. And the climate justice torch was being delivered to the COP27 presidency. And the youth had a very big role to play. You can see the energy. They are quite energetic and they can move swift and fast. So that is within areas of putting pressure so that we can achieve climate justice. You know, one thing that the youth wants, very critically, is to ensure that they advocate for climate justice. Their space should actually be forging and pushing the negotiators to ensure that their commitments in terms of emissions reduction is realized. Because at the end of the day, we are going out. They are remaining on a planet that is likely not to be worth living on. I should remind everybody that there is no other place on this universe that people can live apart from this planet. So saving it is saving humanity. And it should be a great role that the youth have to play in ensuring that as they force for the negotiations, one of their major targets is keeping the 1.5 in their agenda, so that even the negotiators can see that they need to leave the planet to the young ones that is worth staying on. Thank you.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. Thierry, as a young voice yourself who moved from being young to being government, how do you see this?
Thank you, Belen. I'm not that young actually, but I'm in between. Yeah, that's true. It's true. No, I'll be very brief in my response. First, factually, in Rwanda, more than 50% of the population is under 30. So we have a young population. And in the positions of leadership in Rwanda, in our government, you have very young Minister of State and decision maker. And not only youth, naturally in Rwanda, we have a gender equalized team. So when we arrive with Team Rwanda at COP27, we have as well more than 50% women. And we have women in not the secretaries one. You have the CEO of BRD, Pichat. You have the CEO of FONERWA, the minister itself, Minister Mujawa Maria, Minister of State of Economic Planning, Minister Claudine is a woman as well, and rather young. So we arrive with a young, and of agriculture as well, who arrived. We have a very young and as well a gender balanced team that arrives, and we represent our country. And it's not even a question for us. We're coming it because home it's the same. So yeah, I think that for the rest of the world it was a shock, but not for us. And that's it. And our youth team with Honorine here, and we had Ineza as well, who was doing Honorine's position last year, was doing an excellent job. But once again, for us, it's not even a question. We arrive all together as a team, and we lead the negotiation, and we organize an event at our pavilion, and the whole youth come, because they feel the energy, and they feel that it's not an effort that we do, we just do it.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to see Rwanda leading the way and setting the tone on gender and youth equality in the team. So that's great to see, and owning the process in moving forward. So thank you for this. I will come back perhaps to the climate finance that we spoke before, Thierry. And so what do you think that COP27 brought in terms of increased climate finance for Africa and for Rwanda? And what do you think of the EU proposal of a climate adaptation fund? And Thierry, I'll give you
Yeah, for climate finance, we talked about ERMA. The funny fact about ERMA that some of our partners that I see here may know is that the first round of financing of the structure, because we needed funding to launch it, so supposedly we're aiming at 100 million to be able to launch it at COP27. And our partners were so excited by the project and the fact that it was really structurally well done that we received actually 104 million. So we had an extra 4 million. And I remember speaking with the CEO Pichet of BRD, and she said, well, that's 4 million that we have for the next round. Just to show you how excited our partners are and how prepared we arrived as well. So in the first round of funding for ERMA Invest, which is the facility for the private sector, we had the AFD that provided funding. We had SIDA, the Swedish agency. We had the European Union. We had FCDO, which is the English branch, that all committed to funding to launch it. Now for the second round, because there will be a second round, we're aiming at more than a $300 million dollar facility. We will be again looking for funding, and if we do it the right way, we believe that it might be possible to make it happen. So climate finance for us, it's about preparation, but it's as well about responding to our own challenge. The issue, for example, that we have in Rwanda is the pipeline of projects can be rather small because Rwanda is a small country. You've seen it. So sometimes you have partners that come who want to climate finance but say, well, your projects are too small. But at the same time, how can we size it? And that was the idea of ERMA Invest, which was the Rwanda Green Investment Facility at the beginning, but it was too long, so we changed the naming, is how can we make two arms for our facility? The first arm being the project preparation facility Faustin talked about just before, to make the project sizable and bankable and green and follow the best practices. And the second arm, which is pure credit and pure scale up, which would be financing and make it bigger. And you have a good example with ampersand, the electric motos here, that was actually super small when it began. It was only a few electric bikes. And if you go now in Kigali, in our roads, you see, I don't know about you, but I see ampersand motorbikes everywhere. So just to show you that in our approach, we were pragmatic and we know what are the constraints and the qualities of our country. And I think that's why we achieve and we're able to achieve climate finance at a very successful level each time.
So, yeah, from COP27 as Rwanda, how do you see the way forward? And let's focus, as you said, the DDG on the implementation, on the moving forward, into the looking into the future and carrying these elements forwards. What role can be played by the different stakeholders in uptaking and implementing the climate goals? And what challenges do you foresee or anticipate during the implementation?
Yeah, thank you very much, Excellency. Way forward after COP27 and the involvement of key stakeholders. Honestly, what we saw is that when you work together, you achieve more. So as way forward and the involvement of key stakeholders, the first thing as a way forward was a debriefing like this one and others which will take place so that people can sit and digest the outcomes at individual level, at institution level, and also at the country level. All of us being civil society, being private sector, being the government agency, we are all people-centered. We are working for citizens. So we need to make sure that we coordinate all our efforts towards building resilience of our citizens. So there are some of the funds which have been established. There are some of the MOU which have been signed. There are some of the facilities which have been We are seeing some of the funds announcing the call for proposal, but in actual sense, when you see the capacity of some of the organizations, they are not in the position to meet the requirements. So we need to work together and build the capacity from all angles, not just focusing on government institutions, but also on civil society, private sector, so that we can move together. Third is on technology transfer. As of today, we are saying we want to reduce 38% of our emission by 2030. We are saying we want to be carbon neutral by 2050. But leapfrogging to carbon neutral by 2050, we need to change technology. We need to embrace some new technology which will help us to fast track our journey of climate proofing our development. If we don't access technology, it will be very hard to us. So, in a nutshell, apart from means of implementation, we want awareness, to increase awareness in different sectors, in different key actors, saying that agriculture is the most vulnerable sector to climate change because it's a rain-fed agriculture. We don't want to keep that narrative in these forums only. We want to go to the ground, tell farmers, what are you supposed to do? Or even farmers have the traditional knowledge. I was surprised in 2014. REMA conducted a study on traditional knowledge in climate change adaptation. We were very, very surprised. We gathered elders above 65 years and above. They tried to narrate how they were predicting the rain using their traditional knowledge. They tried to show us how they were following the direction of those insects. When it is up from downstream, upstream, they know that the rain is coming. Immediately they go and start their agriculture practices. So from that time, I saw that we have so many knowledge which we can also take advantage and keep using. So when we are talking about awareness, it's both sides. We need to downscale what we are taking from the global discussions, but also we need to promote what they have as knowledge which can help us. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Perhaps just a follow-up question. And what do you see? What role do you see for the European Union and development partners in moving forward the outcomes of COP27?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, we appreciate the flexibility of the European Union in pushing forward the establishment of the Loss and Damage Fund. We are very grateful on the flexibility, on the position of how we are restructuring the adaptation fund and fueling in additional resources so that it can serve fully the Paris Agreement. As you all know, adaptation fund was established in the range of Kyoto Protocol, and the carbon market was adding in 5% of revenues. However, it was a battle to see Article 6, 6.4, 6.2 adding the share of proceed in the adaptation fund. So we want to keep adaptation fund. We want to keep the good work which is being done, but we want to break down the global commitments. Now I'm talking about EU. We want to break down the global commitment to country targets so that we can see what areas or what priorities can we work together while we are implementing the COP27 achievements. So one of the key areas is, of course, the carbon market. We are now busy developing our governance structure on how we are going to handle carbon market in the country. So we want to see European Union and other key partners coming in as one of the innovative way of climate finance. Indeed, we are talking about adaptation. Adaptation is in different angles, but still agriculture, food security is one of the priority. Second, moving from dependence on biomass for cooking, it's one of the priorities. That one will help for tourism. In mitigation, planting trees will help us, or reducing deforestation will help us to offset the carbon. But indeed, it will help us in adaptation because it will reduce the erosion and runoff. So those are the key main areas which either European Union or any other partner can jump in and help us to support our development agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We take very good note of those remarks. So I would like to come back to the questions on what is the way forward for Rwanda after for COP27, and ask the same question to Honorine.
The way forward for Rwanda is from the discussion or this conversation to implementation, having action on ground. Like you know, Rwanda is a country which is driving the climate action on ground with best practice, including the homegrown solution, and also working together as different stakeholders, including civil society, youth, women group, private sector, and government, because that's where we can achieve more when we work together. And another way forward I see as young people is giving you an example of this afternoon event is to raise awareness of the outcome of COP to more young people in Rwanda, so for them to be informed, but also trying to build each other capacity so that we can meaningfully and effectively participate in the design of this policy, not only at the international level or regional, but also at local and national level. Because I think when it's come to design the policy, you've played a critical role, because this policy is all about our future. You can see many policies are for 5 years, 10 years, and we will be the one to be at the forefront of the implementation of this policy. So when you are informed, when you are aware, you can better be part of implementation. So I would like to invite everyone here to join us this afternoon to see how young people we are working together to build one another capacity, but also trying to be informed on what is trending at global level and how we can uptaking this global climate goal at national level. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So Faustine, how do you see the way forward for Rwanda?
Before going to the way forward, allow me to come back to two things. One, to appreciate the European Union on advancing and supporting the establishment of loss and damage fund, and also putting life into the adaptation negotiations. But still, as part of way forward, ask there is a long way to go. Establishing the fund is one thing, but ensuring that the fund has what goes into it and the way it comes out to get to the most vulnerable that are affected by climate change is yet a mechanism that is yet to be discussed. And I think European Union could take a lead into ensuring that that one puts in place a mechanism where actually this fund is not going to be like any other climate fund. You know how rigorous, you know how tough it is to get resources from GCF, for example. It's quite difficult. If it's tied as difficult as it is, the resultant effect is that it may not get to the people that it's supposed to get to. And I believe that that mechanism should be put in place so that it allows the trickling of the funds to the people that need them most. Secondly, I am not sure, I've not talked to my first team here, the chief negotiator, to understand the role he played in bringing a lot of government representatives in Samashek, or if it is because the president had gone there, I am not sure. But one thing I realized in COP27 is that at least you managed to attract more authority from the Rwandan side, which means that they are going to be tackling their policies and strategies from an informed point of view. Why am I saying this? Seeing the Minister of Agriculture, you were talking about the anthills that were telling people when rains were coming. But because of the excessive use, if I can call it excessive use, sometimes they say it's not excessive because it has not gone to the level of Europe, of chemical fertilizers and other pesticides. Those anthills are no more. You don't see them crossing anymore. So it means that our indigenous knowledge has been affected by what we have put into our soils that has destroyed biodiversity, and that one is very dangerous for the community. So seeing the Minister of Agriculture there, I thought that possibly linking now the Minister of Agriculture and Minister of Environment into the implementation of the NDCs would be something possible and quite... So I saw the Minister of Finance there, possibly the negotiation of resources. I saw the Minister of Infrastructure there, possibly when you are talking about housing, this time they will be understanding where they need to put the housing facilities and how they should be in terms of being green, and so many others. I saw the mayor of Kigali was there. So attracting, this is the first COP. I have been in this COP several years, but this is the first COP where Rwanda attracted the government authority that I have never seen before. And I think, going forward, Thierry, you are talking about COP26 plus 1. Now when it becomes plus 2, I would wish to see even members of parliament there. Because they need to be discussing these policies from an informed point of view. They need to know these discussions and get to understand the discourse that is going around. Going forward now, from negotiations to action, from the plane and the hotels to the grassroots, we need to see action on the grassroots. We need your support. You said, what do we need from EU? We need your support in terms of finances that can reach the grassroots, that can work with the grassroots people to build the resilience. What we are actually seeing is that the negotiations may continuously go on, but the bilateral relations are the ones that are going to help us into building climate resilient communities that can actually face the test of time as we move forward within these discussions going forward. So I think the civil society, the government, even the private sector should be mobilized to engage. Climate change is not a one-man's show. Everybody must be involved. Whenever it hits, one of the things we're experiencing is the effect it has on food. I was in a food systems meeting yesterday in Cameroon. That's where I have just come from. But what are the issues? The Horn of Africa, the sufferings that is there, the food issues, the water issues. When you look at the floods happening on the continent, when you look at the severe prolonged droughts, when you look at the erratic rains that appear at a time they were not supposed to appear. Take an example of Rwanda. The rains were not there at the time the farmers needed them. Now, the rains are not there. Now, as we talk about our farmers changing and transforming from depending on the rain, then you should know that there is an amount that is required to respond to that in terms of irrigation facilities. And I think with that, that's the way we should go. How do we build these communities to ensure that they are aware that as the negotiations continue, but action must be on the ground, and they should play a part and be part of the process. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So Thierry, so from COP27, how do you see the way forward for Rwanda?
Thank you, Ambassador. This one, I will take this one. Yeah, the way forward and how we can collaborate more between the European Union and Rwanda is actually the answer to the question, what's the strategic difference of the European Union compared to the rest of the developing partners? It's the size. The European Union is big, right? And when you come and you finance some of our projects or facility, you come with bigger funding. As a matter of fact, you have the economy of scale. We developed 2 facilities that are very big for both the private and the public sector. The first one is IREM Invest. We talked about it enough. So we're expecting for the second round of funding to have the European Union coming big, maybe directly or through the EIB, the European Investment Bank. For the public sector, we've not talked about it because it was not launched during COP27, but basically in Minecofin, in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, we signed with the IMF a facility that's called the Resilience and Sustainability Trust. It's basically a huge facility, 310 million USD, that we're able to apply to and to be selected. Just for your knowledge, only 3 countries in the world were able to be selected, and only 1 in Africa, Rwanda. The rest being Costa Rica and Barbados. In the environment, it's top-notch. We're expecting the European Union and other partners as well. I see Germany, I see Sweden, to come through this facility and to maximize it and scale it up. Because what we don't want is to reinvent the wheel each time. With a new facility for each partner, it takes some time and it's not efficient. So we want scaling up, we want maximization. We have already all the facilities in place, we have the sectors that we want to put forward. Now we need the developing partners to come big and to help us to maximize the efforts that we're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much. And perhaps to conclude, just one final question to all of you. So given the COP27 outcomes, are you optimistic that, or does this give hope to addressing the climate change crisis in a unified global community? Do you see there is potential of us moving forward in a hopeful way as a global community? And I will start by the chief negotiator.
As I said, hope is there. We have hope in COP27 outcome to change the trend in one way, especially on loss and damage, especially for countries which are mainly affected by climate change. Now we are working with the UNDP to try to have a loss and damage country profile so that we can unbreak the narrative and start putting forward facts of loss and damage. When the fund will be fully established at COP28, then we can start working together with the mechanism. That's on the side which we are satisfied. But on the other side, lack of ambition in the mitigation ambition especially for developed countries, and in the whole process, it is putting the whole world at risk. So no one is safe until everyone is safe. We have different capability, but when it comes for climate consequences, we are all in the same boat. So failing to raise the ambition is failing to save the humanity. So our future is at risk, and we need to be conscious. We need to be conscious, and we need to prepare for the next generation, and we need to mind about the equal opportunity for the future generation. So for us, from the technical point of view, some of the areas are giving hope. Other areas are still a work in progress. Let me put that in that context. Otherwise, we are putting humanity at risk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Thierry, would you like to follow up on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ambassador Belen and moderator. Yeah, I'll just be very succinct, and just to wrap up with what I said at the beginning, the issue that we see is a structural issue because we're negotiating block to block. What I see and what would be interesting is to develop in each Ministries of Foreign Affairs a green diplomacy department, even in the European Union. And yeah, you have a special envoy, absolutely. And as well in our bilaterals. But when we met, for example, Ministerin Svenja Schulze, she's Ministerin as well, the Minister as well for Development and Cooperation. When we went in Stockholm last May as well, we discussed with Minister Matilda Ernkrantz, and she's as well Minister for Development and Cooperation. And we start to sense that there will be a need to develop green diplomacy in itself and create departments in all the Ministries of Foreign Affairs to be able to negotiate not only once a year for the COP and trying to get results that are very difficult to get, but to have this continuous dialogue, and that when we meet, we're already prepared and we know what we want to achieve. And I believe, as Faustin said, it's for the greater good of the humanity, and I heard the concerns of the other Faustin about keeping 1.5 degree alive. For me, it will be necessary to have this continuous dialogue and change the structure that we have for diplomacy.
Thank you. Yeah, Faustine. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Normally, we hope for things we've not seen yet. And there is much that we really desire to see ahead. And that gives us the hope out of COP27. But there are indicators that gives you that hope. One, that our government here has started putting in a lot of effort into the negotiations. That one gives us hope, that at least the political will is now there to address issues of climate change and taking it to another level. Another hope comes from yourselves, European Union, and other negotiating blocks that we are negotiating from. The African group of negotiators, the seriousness they're handling the matter with, and the lobby that goes on in the G77 plus China, gives hope that tomorrow something will change. So we keep anticipating. We have always lived in an era of anticipation within these climate negotiations. And year after year, something new comes up. And that's what keeps our hope, that possibly this year we've not attained this, but next year we may attain it. We have hope that next year, Africa will be treated as a continent with special needs and special circumstances. We are lobbying the European Union to address that equally, because I'm sure you know the circumstances that we are living in as Africans. And with that hope, we even have extra hope that is coming from the bilateral relations that are taking place in terms of climate finance between the bilateral discussions with the government. And possibly that one informs us that the civil society will equally be funded. I am not here to say that government should only be funded and the civil society left out. So when the civil society is equally funded, I believe that that synergy will make us see even better results. And let me conclude this by saying that last evening we had a discussion, and we are holding our African COP27 feedback meeting here in Kigali. So the civil society, the African civil society, will be here in Kigali on 15th and 16th. We agreed on that last evening. We are working on a concept and invitations, and I believe that they will get to you. So, apply invitation, book the date. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Honorine, you have the last voice.
I believe all has been said, but what I can add on behalf of youth, we have hope also, considering what we are doing and the outcome we saw at COP27, like including the commitment of having loss and damage fund after 30 years of pushing. So we can still be optimistic for us to be better, to keep pushing for demanding climate justice for our vulnerable community, but also keep the momentum of driving climate action so that we can contribute to ensuring the sustainable and healthy future for us.
Yeah, so thank you very much for this. It was really excellent to have you all here today and to share your views. I wanted to share that this is part of the European Union precisely continuous effort to continue the engagement also in between the COP. So this is part of green diplomacy endeavors. And we are very eager to continue the conversation throughout and in between the COP, and that is essential for us. We have all teams, I think the member states here present have devoted teams within our ministries working on green diplomacy. And for us, this is crucial to keep the commitment up and to make it real, to be able to move from negotiation into action. And that is the next step and the next endeavor that we all have at hands. I very much appreciate the conversation. I mean, I think you put very well on the table the great successes. I mean, the moving a step forward into climate justice by engaging into the loss and damage fund, where the European Union indeed was committed to make it happen, and we showed the flexibility to make it happen. And now the next step is there to make it into a real step. Also, yes, to get this space as European Union more than as moderator, I would like to share that indeed we have internal commitments that we are moving forward. And we're just finalizing a very ambitious package known as the Fit for 55, which is to put ourselves on track in terms of our legally binding commitments for 2030 to achieve a 55% reducing emission. I mean, our target will be to reduce emissions by 55% comparing to 1990 in 2030. And we're already at 57%. So it shows the determination within the EU to move this ambitious mitigation agenda. We will continue cooperating with Rwanda at multilateral level, but also bilaterally. The European Investment Bank came into IREME. We will be looking forward also into the next steps, but also bilaterally moving into agriculture and environment, seeing how they can both contribute in delivering into UNDCs, and we'll be very much looking forward to support those endeavors. So a lot on our agenda, a lot to do together to move from negotiation into action. And I think there are not better words to conclude this debate than the words that you said, DDG, that we fail to raise our ambitions, it will be a failure for humanity and for the planet that we all stand at. It's in the hands of the youth and the future generations. So thank you very much for this. Thank you very much for this. I'm looking forward to continue engaging with all of you.